Hello guys, so today we're looking at great used family cars for under £10,000. Keep watching. So in this one we're trying to look at all different kinds of family car, not just the bog standard, sort of 5-door hatch that you might be thinking of. There are some of those in there, but we've also got some larger cars, some estate cars, a few other bits. And then right at the end we've got a couple of wild cards that you might find interesting, that are maybe not exactly what you think as a family car, but might make sense to some of you. Now, aside from those wild cars, we're not looking at performance cars here at all. So if you're looking for hot hatches and everything else, you have come to the wrong place. These are just normal, practical, everyday cars that will get you and your family and a bit of stuff around with you. Guys, something quick just to add is that I'm not hanging about with these cars. I'm trying to get through quite a lot of them for you. And as such, I'm not going into much detail about sort of known common faults on them. So what I would suggest you do, if you see something on here and it makes you think, oh, that's an interesting car, one I should look into, just do a quick Google of that particular car followed by common faults, and you should find out all you need to know. See, in some of these videos I'm a bit more detailed, but with this one I really just want to whip through as many cars as possible. So as always, please give the video a quick thumbs up, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe and do follow me on Twitter. Thanks very much. Let's get on to the content. So starting things off here with BMW 3 Series, and this one's the 320D, very popular diesel, but it's the Gran Turismo edition. So this sits sort of in between the saloon and the estate. It basically gives you a great big hatchback, but with a bit of a sort of coupe look. A little bit Marmite in terms of looks. I know people that don't like the look of these and some people that love them, but yeah, it's a really interesting sort of choice for a family car because you can get so much into it, but you've still got quite a nice sort of premium car. So this one has got 54,769 miles on it. It's just under 10 grand, so low price according to Cap on this, 698 quid below market average. Full service history, and it's ULEZ compliant, which is great. So let's have a look at the pictures. It looks to have a bit of bird feces down the back of the boot there, which I guess comes free of charge, or maybe an optional extra. Who knows? Nice interior. Auto box in these is great as long as it's been well serviced, and obviously that goes for the rest of the car. Do double check that service history. With all these old diesels, have they been motorway cars? Probably not massively with that kind of mileage on it. It's been used on lots of short runs. Any signs of any diesel particulate filter issues, or has it had a flush, find out those kind of things. So that looks good. It's going to come with a new 12-month MOT and a service. Specification, so we're looking at 0 to 60 7.9, which is very good for this kind of car on a diesel. It's going to feel fairly quick to most people. 184 horsepower, 280 foot-pound of torque. It's got plenty of power. And running costs 130 quid a year car tax, combined MPG of 57.6, which if you've watched my videos before, you know to take with a pinch of salt. On to the next. So this one is, they're very popular cars, aren't they? But it's a 2013 Honda CR-V. It's the 2-litre petrol, this one. And it's the VTEC SE 2-wheel drive 5-door. Manual gearbox. Again, it's ULEZ compliant. 0 to 60 on its 10 seconds, and 141 foot-pound of torque, so probably not an amazing towing car. 153 horsepower. Running costs 250 quid is the annual tax. That's quite high on the tax, and you can only really expect road tax to go up and the bands to come down, so that's going to become more expensive as time goes on. And combined MPG at 39, so it's probably more like 30 real world. So yeah, as far as the ongoing running cost goes, it might be a little bit more expensive than some of the other cars we're looking at. But what they give you is a very, very practical car. You can see it's nothing flash on the interior, but you've got a huge boot on these, and people do love an SUV, and yeah, lots of space. Just a good family car, really, a CR-V. There you go, nice big boot in that. So yeah, big practical car, one to put on your list of things to sort of examine further. Do look at common faults and things, because on Hondas, parts can be expensive, although second-hand parts and refurbished parts, might be available. But do know what you're getting into, and the same goes for that for any of these cars really. Next one, we had to have one, didn't we? If I did a family car video and didn't mention the Golf, someone would probably arrive at my door and shoot me. So here's a Golf. So this one's the 1.4 GT trim. It's the TSI ACT Blue Motion. Okay, 138 brake horsepower, manual, ULEZ compliant. Yeah, 1.4 petrol, basically 1.4 petrol Golf. That's quite nice. It doesn't look massively different to the modern Golfs on the interior. 63 plate, this one, 2014. And it's with a dealer. It looks like it's had a good valet and a tidy up. Looks to be a fairly nice example on the face of things. What we're looking at here, a few scratches on the top of the bumper. That's nothing bad. You probably polish those out or just put a trim piece over the top. So yeah, looks like an interesting car. Running costs on that one, 30 quid a year car tax, 58 mpg. What else did I say? That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And that's a petrol as well. So you have to think you're not going to have to service it quite as regularly as you do with a modern diesel. And, you know, the cost of petrol's not as expensive as diesel. Does this make more sense to you than some of these diesels? Think about that. Next, we're moving on to the Mazda 6. And this one's the Estate. And the Mazda 6 is a brilliant car, and they're sometimes a bit overlooked. They sometimes get lost in the pack a little bit, but they're great cars. And the Estate is actually a really, really practical and quite a nice looking car in my book. This one's the 2-litre petrol. That's the SEL edition, so it's a sort of a reasonable trim level. 0 to 60 in 9.6, 143 horsepower. Running costs on it, 155 quid a year on the tax, and combined MPG of 50. So again, it's not the cheapest, but it's a nice car. Not very nice interior. I think their interiors are fairly well put together as well. I mean, you do get some hard plastics around these areas, but you know, it's not a premium car at the end of the day. But they are very, very nice cars that are well put together. What's that we see? A tow bar. I've said it in other videos, but be wary of cars that have towed, particularly a petrol rather than a diesel. It's that, you know, the diesels have plenty of torque and maybe find it a bit easier to tow. Luckily, it's got a manual gearbox. I don't know, for me, like an automatic gearbox in a petrol car that's got a tow bar on it would be not my first choice. This is coming from a dealer, so if it was a private buyer, you might turn up and you see an absolutely giant caravan on the front drive, and you know that's what it's been towing. If you turn up and you see a tiny little trailer, then you haven't got too much to worry about. Something to bear in mind. Anyway, yeah, really good cars, and definitely one to think about as your next family car. So next we're looking at a Focus, the good old Focus, and on this one I've looked at the 1.6. It's the 125 horsepower, and this is titanium spec, which is reasonable spec. But I've deliberately missed the very small engines that are out there. So Ford do lots of 1 litre petrols and 1.5 litres diesels, and they're very small, like 3-cylinder engines. For the simple reason that those things are not going to make old bones without some costs. They're very frugal, very efficient, decent performance as a new car, but they're so reliant on turbos and everything else to get all that performance out of that small engine that, in my opinion, they're probably a much better new buy than they are a used buy. So I'd rather get something with a bit of a bigger, slightly more traditional technology behind it as a used car, possibly. But, you know, you may have different opinion to me. This one's ULEZ, automatic, as I said, 1.6 petrol. Running costs on this one, tax 170 quid. And combined MPG of 44.8. Performance-wise, 11.7 to 60 and 123 horsepower. So it's not going to win any races, this one, and it's not the cheapest thing to run. But the great thing with the Focus is that there are so many of them that parts are really easy to come by. And if there are any common faults, then there'll be absolutely tons of them posted online, because there'll be so many of these cars on the road that enough people have experienced them. So you should be able to go into that with a fairly good sort of background knowledge of what to look for. By the way, do look at my video on checking out a used car's history, because that one might be very useful to a lot of you. All the things to check for when you go and look at a used car. Okay, next we're moving on to a white BMW 2 Series Active Tourer. Again, these are a little bit overlooked, but they're very, very practical family cars that should make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but seem to get overlooked. And there are a few cars in this sort of space, so I guess like the C4 Picasso, the Mercedes B-Class, BMW 2 Series, the Ford C-Max. There are a lot of cars in this sort of slightly bigger hatchback that's a little bit raised and everything. And for me, I think this is one of the best looking ones. And again, you know, it's a BMW. It's a good decent brand. This one is a small diesel. It's a 2 litre, but it's the 218D, and it's the luxury trim, the 2 Series Active Tourer. 2 litre diesel, as I said, ULEZ compliant, full service history, only 2 owners, 47,000 miles. 0 to 60 in 8.9, 148 horsepower, 243 pound-foot of torque. It's got plenty of torque, 129 mile an hour top speed. Running costs, 20 quid a year, road tax. Woohoo! And 62 at MPG. That, to me, it makes more sense than Focus, although everybody wants a Focus, and you know, Focus, they sort of retain fairly strong money. You think that's the same price as that Focus that's got much higher running costs, albeit spare parts will be more expensive on this BMW, and there won't be as many second-hand and refurbished spare parts around as there is for a Focus. But yeah, one to think about. Next one is the good old Audi A3. Again, sort of falls into the same category as a Golf. It basically is a Golf. But if I'd done a video without mentioning this, then I probably should have been shot. So here we go. Very nice cars. I much prefer them over the Golf, although I'll probably get shot for saying that. A lot of shooting in this video today. But yeah, very, very nice cars. Well put together. I've had plenty of them. I like them a lot. This one's ULEZ compliance, the 1.4 litre petrol. These are really good engines. Whatever anyone says about them, they are very good engines. 0 to 60 and 9.4. Running costs, 130 quid a year tax, 53 MPG on the combined. This one's done 50,000 miles. No mention of service history in the splurge, so that'd be one you have to look up on. And also, that brilliant red looks great, but you want to see that in the flesh, because sometimes an old red car can go a little bit sort of pinky looking and get a bit sun faded. So you want to make sure that that paintwork's in good condition. It might be possible to machine polish. If it's not, you want to make sure it's in good condition when you get it, because a few years down the road it may start to get a little bit sun damaged. 10 grand, nice car. Right, we had one of these as a family car, and I can't think of a better family car. These things are absolutely brilliant. They won lots of awards. They won Car of the Year and everything else. And Skoda stopped making them. I think it was a brilliant car by Skoda, and it was, you know, dared to be a little bit different. And they can be a bit Marmite in terms of looks. Some people love them, some people hate them. But they are brilliant cars and so practical. So this one's 2 litre diesel. It is ULEZ compliant. 0 to 60 is 11.6 and 108 horsepower. 30 quid a year car tax, 62.8 MPG. And let's have a look at it. Oh, that's a video. I'm not going to play that. Here we go. Really nice interiors. They're really well put together as well. Like, the build quality in them is great. I mean, that's a Golf interior right there. They've just stuck it in the Skoda. And they've got a really nice big square boot. As you can see, the parcel shelf's still in there, but if you whip that out, and we used to have ours out and had a cage in the back, you could get quite a lot of gear in there, and yeah, plenty of room for passengers. Nice high riding position. There are a number of these in 4-wheel drive as well, and it's actually quite a decent 4-wheel drive system, better than you'd expect. I drove one in the snow one day in really, really icy, snowy conditions, and it was a dream. I couldn't get my A4 off the drive, and I got in this, and it was just away. Absolutely no problems. So yeah, nice car. 35,000 miles on that one as well, which is great, isn't it? You want to make sure it's got plenty of service history. There's no mention of it here, but you definitely want to make sure that car's been regularly serviced. And again, a diesel engine with low mileage suggests it maybe only done short trips, so think about DPF, diesel particulate filter. Next one's a Mondeo Estate. Now the Mondeo itself is a fantastic family car because there's just so much space in it, lots of room for your passengers, but a fair decent amount of boot room as well. The Estate makes even more sense to me, but you know, don't discount the standard Mondeo either because they do make a huge amount of sense as a family car. This one's a 2-litre diesel Z-Tech, 30,000 miles, and manual gearbox. What have we got here? Performance 9.4 seconds and 148 horsepower, 273 pound-foot of torque. And running costs 30 quid a year, car tax, and 65 mpg. I mean, is there a more practical family car out there? It's quite nicely appointed. They're really nice cars to drive as well. Nice dash and everything, and infotainment system. I mean, that's going to be a really nice car to get up the road in. It really is. Again, not a great deal of mentioned service history, but, well, oh, here we go, sorry. Full service history, recent MOT. So, full service history, just always inspect it. Your idea of full service history might not be the same as mine. It might not be the main dealer. They might have done it themselves. You know, really inspect. But, yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic family car. And people should think more about estate cars and less about, like, the small SUVs and things, because sometimes you get far more for your money and far more practical space. You know, everything that draws you to the SUV, you think, oh, we can get everything in there, lots of space for the kids, we get loaded in the boot. Quite often you get more of that with an estate, so don't rule out estate cars. They are good things, trust me. Right, next one is a small SUV, after saying that. Just because I know people love them. So this is sort of your rival for the cash car, I suppose, the Mazda CX3. Its older brother or older sister is the CX5, but the CX3 is quite a cool looking little car. It's one of the smaller cars here, probably more of a sort of a rival to the Golf in terms of boot space and what have you than it is to some of the larger cars. I mean, it's a reasonable sized boot and it's a fairly decent sort of shape for getting things in and out. But it's not going to have a huge boot like some of the bigger cars here. But very nice cabin again. Digital dash there, as you can see. And yeah, nice place to be. 28,000 miles on that one, which is great. It's a 2-litre petrol manual gearbox, ULEZ compliant. And 0 to 60 in 9 seconds, 120 horsepower. 155 quid road tax, 47 mpg. Very good option, that. And yeah, look, it's only, it's a 5-year-old car, 10 grand. Right, now, these again divide opinion a bit. I think they're really good and they're nice family cars. And I don't think they look that bad. Some people think they look like Postman Pat's van. Well, you know, it's not so bad, is it? Very nice interior. Decent space in the back for the kids. And a nice big boot. So this is the B-Class. It's the 1.5 diesel manual gearbox. And it's the B180D SE Executive spec. Running costs on this is 20 quid a year road tax and 70 mpg, claimed mpg. But I've had one of these for a couple of days and I got something nuts out of it. Like, I think I got like 58 mpg out of it. But that was motorway mileage, I might add. 0 to 60, 11.6, so it's going to feel maybe a bit sluggish, pulling away from the lights. But because you've got 192 pound-foot of torque, the mid-range power, so overtaking and stuff's going to be no problem in it. It's just when you're pulling away, the initial sort of pull away from the lights is not going to feel rapid, to say the least. I've just looked at that, so... oh no, I've gone into it again, what an idiot. Running costs, I've done that already. Goodbye. This one is one of the more popular family cars you can get today, but some of these others here do make more sense in a lot of ways, but The Qashqai was the thing that changed the game. It sort of brought in the crossover, saved Nissan almost. I mean, it was massively popular, and they are very good cars. So this one's a 1.6 diesel. It is ULEZ compliant. It's manual gearbox, and it's the 1.6 DCI Tecna, and it's 4-wheel drive on this one. So performance is 10.5 seconds to 60, 128 horsepower, 236 pound-foot of torque, and 155 quid a year road tax, 55 mpg. But they're very nice cars. As I said, massively popular. You should be able to get second-hand parts on these all right, because again, there's so many of them around, or refurbished parts. I mean, they've just sold in bucket loads, haven't they, Qashqais? But getting parts directly from Nissan can be very expensive, so beware. Okay, next one, Skoda Superb. If you've watched my estate car video, you'll know I like the Superb. It's got an absolutely gargantuan boot, a really nice cabin, and a ton of passenger space. Sometimes people get a bit badge snobby with Skoda, but they shouldn't. I mean, I've got 2 on this list, and the other one that should be on here, but I just didn't want to put a third Skoda on, is the Octavia, because the Octavia, again, is an absolutely fantastic family car. But the Superb is just such a nice, refined car. I felt like it deserved a space on this list. This one's done 74,000 miles. It's 2016 model. It's the 2-litre diesel DSG automatic gearbox, and 0 to 60 in 8.7 seconds, 148 horsepower, 130 quid a year tax, 58.9 combined mpg. Let's have a look at it. It's a handsome looking car, isn't it? If it had a different badge on it, you'd swear that was a far more expensive car. Again, very nice interior. It's the same interior basically that you would get in a Passat, or, you know, any other VW group car, more or less. Nicely screwed together. Umbrellas in the doors in these, just like a Bentley. Look at the size of that boot. Oh, you could live in there, couldn't you? A boot that big should have an ensuite, really. But there we go. Yeah, very, very practical, very sensible. Maybe not exciting, but so comfortable as a car. Should be on your list of things to consider. Next one, 2016 Galaxy. Some people will be saying, well, what about the S-Max? What about the C-Max? Well, all right, they're not bad options, but they have more reported faults than the Galaxy does. And the Galaxy is huge. It's a van, right? If you put the seats flat in it, the space you get is absolutely gargantuan. And obviously it's got 7 seats, but if a lot of people will have those back seats down, and you've got a huge 5-seat car with 3 proper back seats, you could put 3 child seats in, or 2 child seats and an adult. And you've got all that practicality and passenger space, but also an absolutely ginormous boot. MPVs have gone well out of fashion, and a lot of companies not even making them anymore. And I think it's a real shame, because I think they're brilliant. I mean, look at the size of that in the back. 3 proper seats. The only thing this car should have is slidey back doors instead of normal back doors, because the doors are huge on it. And if you're in a cramped parking space, which often you are, because some old deer's gone and parked in the parent and child one, it can be very difficult because the doors are so big. And if it had slidey doors, it would make a load more sense. But don't discount these, because they are very good cars and very practical. It's not a good shot of the boot, which is unfortunate. This one's done 73,000 miles. It's the 2-litre diesel Z-Tech, and it's the automatic. And it is ULEZ compliant. So yeah, there were more of these around the sort of 2014 models around this sort of price. So it is a very good price. So I would say definitely inspect that one very thoroughly if you were considering it. Right, 2017 Seat Leon. Again, it's the Golf and the A3, but with a different hat on, if you like. But you get 2017 model with a Seat badge on it. It's 2 litre manual diesel, 41,000 miles, and it's the I don't know what spec it is actually. Does it say? No, it doesn't. Performance 8.6 seconds, 8.4 seconds to 60, 148 horsepower, 250 pound-foot torque. Running costs 30 quid tax, and 64 mpg combined. Great. Next, right, we're now going to sort of the wildcard stuff. So this one's over 10 grand, which is why I'm calling it a wild card. This is an under 10 grand video, and this one's 11. But it's a BMW X1. So lots of people like an SUV, as we've said. This one kind of sits as a small SUV, but I thought it was a really good car for the money. So the X1 is sort of the younger brother or sister to the X3 and the X5, and I think there's an X4 now and an X2 and everything else. But so it's not a huge SUV, but it's kind of, I think of it as almost an estate car on stilts, or a very large hatchback on stilts. But popular cars. This one's a 2 litre petrol. It is ULEZ compliant, and 7.8 seconds to 60, which is great. 181 horsepower, 275 quid on tax, so it is expensive on tax, and 37 mpg. But it's the X-Drive, so it's 4-wheel drive, petrol. You see, nice big boot. So it's and it's got a lot of performance, isn't it? It's a fairly rapid car for the size of it, and 11 grand. So you know, you may be able to find cheaper examples available, or ones with higher mileage or something, but I just felt that was a good car that represented decent value for money. Next, we're going to go. The next two we've gone slightly crazy with. So we've got 2008 Porsche Kn. This one's a 3.6 V6 Tiptronic Auto, and it's the S model. Now, what that gives us is a 3.6 litre V6 petrol engine, mated to a decent Porsche automatic gearbox. 0 to 60 is 8.6 seconds. It's 290 horsepower. It's a big, heavy car. Just £600 a year tax, and combined MPG of a mere 21.9. So you may look at that and think, "Oh my God, I can have like a Porsche Cayenne for under 10 grand." Yes, you can, but bear in mind the running costs on it are going to be gargantuan. If you ever took it to Porsche for servicing, you would need to have a good lie down afterwards, because the cost is ridiculous. Although there are lots of independent specialists around. But don't get into one of these unless you've got the money to, run it and service it properly. But that was a massively expensive car when it was new. It's now available for under 10 grand. So if you are feeling fruity, you could be sitting in that. I mean, that's a very nice cabin, isn't it? To me, it doesn't look, 13 years old? It doesn't look like a 13-year-old car inside. It's a good-looking car. And even on the outside, I don't think they're massively dated. I think they still look all right. Bit road presence as well, isn't there? Right, and then we're going to go for our second ridiculous SUV, which should only be taken on by people that can really afford it. And it's a Range Rover Sport. And not only is it Range Rover Sport, it's the 4.2 litre V8 supercharged, and it's the HSE, so it's a nice spec. It's ULEZ compliant. Wow. 2007 model with 80,000 miles on it. 0 to 60 in 7.2, 385 horsepower. Ooh, but the running costs, 600 quid a year tax, combines at 17.8 mpg. I mean, that's going to cost you a hell of a lot of money to run. The other thing is, you've got to look at common faults on anything really made by Land Rover, and there are lots of them. People always say, like, you get an old Range Rover and then you get another car to actually drive. Again, some people will argue the toss on that, but there are lots and lots of cases where people have had massive reliability issues with Range Rovers. But if this kind of thing floats your boat and you thought you could never afford one, you can get one for under 10 grand. That's it. I put it in there for a bit of a giggle, really, and you know, some people will look at that and it will excite them. But there we go. Thanks for watching that. I hope you've enjoyed it. And what did you think? Let me know in the comments. What did I miss that should have been in there? What do you like the look of that you hadn't previously considered, and this video's made you think about it? Give us some feedback, guys. Join in. If you haven't already done so, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe. And please, if you'd like to support the channel in any other ways, look at the links in the description, because there are several other things you can do to help me out. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next time.